You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of truth. A dimension of freedom. A dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
Welcome to the Capitalist Corner, everybody. I am your host, Michael Leibowitz, and we have what I think is going to be a great show today because we have the great Jim Valiant with us today.
Obviously, yes.
Also, just to let you know, there will be an episode coming out later tonight of Jim Valiant and myself discussing Leonard Peikoff's chapter on the good, using it for self-improvement. That'll be on The Rational Egoist. That should be absolutely wonderful. Remember that we accept super chaps. We don't want super chaps. We want super chats and super stickers.
Okay.
And please remember to like, share, and subscribe. That would be great. So, Jim, I want to give a little context going in. We got a lot to talk about today. So, but prior to the Super Bowl, there was the controversy going on in MAGA land. They were very upset about this fellow Bad Bunny that was chosen to perform. Bad Bunny has made derogatory comments about Trump. He refused to perform in America for a little while. We've got $2 from Jenna Clean. Thank you so much. So he's a political guy. And so the Super Bowl chose him to perform at halftime. The MAGA folks decided to create their own Super Bowl halftime show with Kid Rock performing for TP USA. I'm not a big football fan. I do like the sport. I don't watch it because to really get involved, it requires far too much time than I'm willing to devote out of my life. I have far too much to do. But I did watch the Super Bowl, or at least most of it last night. Diana and I had planned to leave at halftime. We were at her mother's house, and then her mother insisted that we watch the Bad Bunny performance. And I didn't like it. And I'm open to being convinced that I'm wrong. Let me just say that. But my thinking was I didn't like that it was all in Spanish. The reason I didn't like that it was all in Spanish, because ultimately this is an all-American sport. It's for an American audience. And then beyond just that it was in Spanish, because you made a good point. Had it been Carlos Santana doing in Spanish, it wouldn't have irked me.
Spanish. That would have been such a cool halftime.
Right, but here's the thing.
Mendes, all Portuguese. I would have loved that Super Bowl performance, even if it was all in a foreign language, my brother.
Jenna, Bad Bunny's lyrics were all in Spanish. I understand Lady Gaga came up and sang, but Bad Bunny was all in Spanish. Yes, I know Puerto Ricans are American as well, but I also understand that English is the language spoken predominantly in America. I'm going to get to it. What the reason it irked me. So they did that. Then when they got to God Bless America. Now, when we say God Bless America, we're talking about God Bless the United States of America. I'm well aware that the Americas consist of far more than just the United States. They consist of the North America and all of South America as well. And so when he said God Bless America, he then brought in all the other American countries. He named them all. At the very end of this, this guy's going to drive me crazy already in the chat because he wants to keep talking before I get to actually make my point. So at the very end, they had Bad Bunny he gave his Grammy Award to the kid that had been detained by ICE. To me, it was an overtly political performance. I'm not a fan of overtly political performances at sporting events. That's the first thing. Secondly, you convinced me recently about That wasn't a child actorly. Anyways, you convinced me about the danger right now in the country, that with the division that's taking place, that, there's a division taking place in this country. And I felt that this performance at the halftime was a thumb in the eye of the other side with which there's a division. And I just think that it's entirely unnecessary. That said, I also think that the NFL is a private organization and can do whatever the hell they want, right? It's really not, if you don't like it, don't watch it. All the people who bitch about kneeling during the national anthem or whatnot,
like kneeling at the
right? Then don't watch the performance. And then there's this, Jim. I find that there is a ton of hypocrisy going on. Let me put it this way. Had Ted Nugent performed at the Super Bowl, draped in the American flag, handguns in tow, right? Right? Touting the virtues of the Second Amendment, there would have been an uproar from the left like you would not believe.
Right.
Now, what this reminds me of is this. I used to be a facilitator in this program called the Alternative to Violence Project. And it was run by a lot of left-wing folks. They were Quakers that came in from the outside. I didn't care. They were nice to me. The inmates are predominantly left. I don't care. That's not what we're here for. Inevitably, they would bring politics into our monthly discussions. And I finally said, look, would you guys be okay if I raised my hand and went off on a diatribe about preserving the Second Amendment? Oh, no, that's not appropriate. Okay, but if it's not appropriate for me to do it, it's not appropriate for you to do it. And it's just, I think most people tune into the Super Bowl for entertainment. They tune into the halftime show for the entertainment. And just making it blatantly political in what was, in my view, undeniably the thumb in the eye to the other side, it just seems unnecessary. And I don't like it.
We need to engage in an exercise here in very careful distinction making. And there's a whole bunch of distinctions that I think are important to bear in mind. First, let's talk about art and politics. The greatest novelists of the 19th century were men like Victor Hugo and Dostoevsky, and Dostoevsky wrote most of his great work after his return from his exile in Siberia, when he became a profound social conservative, deeply influenced by his Russian Orthodox religion, which I find absolutely philosophically abhorrent. Victor Hugo, for example, I'm much happier with Victor Hugo's politics, but even though he was kind of a social reformer, not socialist, but social, what we might call social justice awareness guy, I can distinguish the politics of these guys and the religion of these guys, because both of them brought Christianity in different political ways to their work. But they were brilliant storytellers. They were brilliant artists as writers. They were, Ayn Rand, who disagreed with both perspectives of Victor Hugo ultimately on politics and Dostoevsky ultimately on religion and social matters, could appreciate that there were deeper things going on. With Victor Hugo, he had a magnificent sense of morality, and that influenced a magnificent sense of life that Ayn Rand was moved by, maybe greater than any other writer she knew. Dostoevsky was a brilliant storyteller. He could handle philosophical and psychological themes in just the most dazzling way, and that very much impressed Ayn Rand. But one has to separate, Ayn Rand said, and I agree with her here, an artist's views from their skill as an artist. Look, I am an atheist. I oppose Christianity explicitly. If you can't be moved by Schubert's Ave Maria, there's something wrong with your soul as far as I'm concerned. Look, I don't like Wagner being an obnoxious human being and an obnoxious anti-Semite and Hitler's favorite composer. my evaluation of his operas are, they're sometimes I don't like what he's doing to music. There can be long, boring, noise-lib, as some have described it. But if you can't get the dramatic thrill of De Valkyrie or Tristan and Isolde, then again, you're not evaluating their music separate from the man. If I were to do this in logic, to say someone's argument is true because the man was good or false because the man was bad, I would be engaged in a logical fallacy. The same applies to the skill of an artist. But when it comes to actors and musicians, I don't care. Athletes, well, I don't give two things.
No, me
They're
neither.
politics.
Yeah.
Okay, I really don't care. Why should anyone care if Billie Eilish believes that we're on stolen land? Billie Eilish is no expert on history and political theory. She's an idiot in that regard, and she's making a fool of herself. Now, do I like a lot of Billie Eilish's music? I love a lot of Billie Eilish's music. I can separate those two things out. But when you turn an awards show into basically a political event, then what the hell? You're not making that distinction that I just made. We give the award to you because of your skill as an artist, whether it's the Academy Awards about movies or the Grammys about music. It's presumably your skill as an artist that we're giving you this award. So your politics is utterly irrelevant. You're ruining awards shows by making them into this political axe grinding session, and the ratings of those shows reflect it. Now, football, sports and government, just like sports and music, should be separate. Just like we have religion of church and state, we should have separation of state and economics, all for the basic same reason. We should have a complete separation. Look, if people get offended, and now think, God bless America. Irving Berlin was making a political statement when he wrote that about the United States of America. He was so deeply grateful, being from immigrants, he was so deeply grateful to be here that the famous American composer Irving Berlin wrote the moving song, right? God Bless America. And so it's a political statement, the song. I can feel when now let me make some other distinctions. When I agree with the lyric, and the lyric matches the music so beautifully. That's artistry in itself. So do I like God Bless America? I'm an atheist. Nonetheless, I also love America, and I appreciate Irving Berlin's motives in that song. And if you're going to twist that song to your own political ends, you are making a political statement that perverts, frankly, the original musical statement that the writer of the song God Bless America was making. He meant the United States of America.
Right.
So you're now perverting it into your politics to make a political statement through art. Look, I do not like Bad Bunny's music. I really detest this. When I heard it last night, it's funny, you're going to love this story. I'm having dinner with Leonard Peikoff and his wife, and my wife was there. We were listening to the sound, and I said, God, this music sucks. And Holly, what did you say? Leonard said the equivalent of, he used an expletive. This is shit music. And Holly said, this is worse than shit, because Holly is a lover of 70s music and so forth. But she also likes some contemporary music. So we agreed the music. And then Leonard makes the comment, what's he saying? And I said, who cares, in effect, that we can't understand? It doesn't matter to me what the lyrics are. For example, like we mentioned Carlos Santana, and I mentioned Sergio Mendes. Their lyrics were often so tame as, Oye, como va? How's it going? In effect, is what he's saying. Or Mas Que Nada, say, the famous song by Sergio Mendes. It doesn't matter. The samba's so cool, you get into it. Now, that's very tame lyrics, even in translation. But if it had been an all Spanish or all Portuguese performance of cool music, that's American. And besides, the NFL, as you point out, is a private organization. If they want to have whatever music they want, they can have. And in fact, legally speaking, they should be able to make political statements if they want to.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right.
I don't, they're free to say what they would like, and we are free to say what we would like. Robert, there's a few things here. First of all, this fellow here says he wants to debate me. Andrew, I don't know what subject you want to debate. You'd have to let me know if it's a topic that I disagree with you with, and I feel that I'm astute enough to handle it, sure. Robert says, halftime show wasn't my style of music. I wish I understood the lyrics. It was an extraordinary spectacle. I agree with that. It was a very, very big
most of
show.
the lyrics, again, were not so awful. I mean, one of Bad Bunny's lyrics, in effect, translates as, Auntie asked me if I have a girlfriend. I told her I've got one girl today and another girl tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, but then I'm going to get into that in a second. But Robert says something that I disagree with emphatically. Okay. Robert says the theme was an attempt to bring people together. I get that's what he said, but it is unmistakable. When you introduce the kid with the ice in one of the most heated issues in the country right now, that's not an attempt to bring people together. When you are bringing out, you have, the migrant farmers working there, and when you bring in all the South American and North American countries too, actually, because Mexico is North America, but it clearly was not an attempt to bring people together. He can say it's all about love all he wants, but you also can't drop the context of Bad Bunny's political history of praising Black Lives Matter, being in sync
There's
with
no
those
doubt
guys.
it was political.
That's all part of it as
There's
well.
no doubt it was political, and politics is look. If you're there to enjoy great athletic activity, right, it cuts across politics. And what you're doing is you're putting it in the face of the half of the audience by making any political statement, okay? If what you were doing is, as I say, let's say Carlos Santana or Sergio Mendes had done a performance all in Spanish or all in Portuguese, something so mild and tame as, Oya Como Va, or Bash que Nada would be actually a way of bringing people together, Robert.
Jimbo, my brother, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So the Andrew fella that wants to debate says this. He puts it in quotations. Just shut up and dribble. And then he says, I didn't know the First Amendment only applied to people who weren't athletes and artists. Fair question to you, Jim. This fella wants to debate me. If he comes with that kind of an argument, you're going to get embarrassed, dude. I'm telling you ahead of time.
You'll wipe the floor with him, because the distinction making that we have to make, that we have to separate out their First Amendment right. Does Bad Bunny have an absolute right to have his political view, to express it wherever he wants to express it? Does a private organization like the NFL have a right to put him on, even if he's going to make a political statement? Now, do I think it is appropriate? There's a separate question here. Do I think it is appropriate to force down the throats of people there to watch a sporting event your politics? No, I don't. I think the NFL I can still say the NFL used poor judgment in allowing this highly politically charged guy to make a clear political statement in the halftime show of something that should cut across everyone's political views. Because sports should have nothing to do with politics, okay? Music, look, there is a political theme to, as I say, great art. Very frequently, the art itself. And I'm willing to even look beyond that. But if you're there to grind your political axe and to shove it down people who disagree's throat, then I think you are morally doing something that I disapprove of, and aesthetically doing something that's just wrong, or doing something that is inappropriate to the context, such as a sporting event.
Right.
So I can both say grinding a political axe that way is wrong, and simultaneously say that Bad Bunny and the NFL have freedom of speech and have the right to do it.
Sure. So when you earlier said, we were talking about a award show, and you said you don't care what athletes have to say, Andrew, I don't know if you know how to get in touch with me on Facebook or X. Please do. Please, even if I agree with you, I'll take the other side. Just please just contact me. Andrew says, with that logic, why should we care about your opinions? You guys have never been elected. Nobody. Hold on. Let me take this, Jim, please.
Hell, you take this one.
Yeah, nobody is saying that you can't have a valid opinion if you're not elected. If you tune into this show, this is a political show. That's why you're tuning in. People that go to a Super Bowl, that's not why they're going. That's the disconnect. My friend Subby just texted me, and he's told me this story a lot of times. He went to a concert with some of his left-wing friends. I think it was a Pearl Jam concert, if my memory serves me correct. And the lead singer, while on stage, went off about his politics. And Subby said, I don't pay for that. I'm paying to come see them perform. And Subby's friend said, oh, no, that's fine. He can do that. But the interesting thing was because Subby's friend agreed with it. That's the inherent problem.
It was like your meeting. If the same people had heard an artist say something of different politics, different from theirs, they would be bitching and moaning. Okay, because shut up and play. So it's like shut up and dribble. Yeah. Yes. When you're dribbling, all I care about, and by the way, the only value you have to me as a basketball player up front is your sports performance. If you don't know history and economics and political theory and political philosophy, so look, I don't care that Einstein was a socialist and the man was a provable genius. I don't care about Einstein's politics. That was not his area of expertise. That is not what made him famous. That is not what he was particularly expert in. It much more reflects the culture that the people he hung around with than the truth of socialism. Okay? So if I don't care what Einstein thinks about politics. Now, on the other hand, Michael here has studied history and economics and political philosophy at some great length. He takes pains to become informed about current political events. It's not that everyone else doesn't have a right to an opinion or a right to express that opinion. Einstein could express his opinion on socialism. But guess what? If it's not physics, I'm not going to give it much credence because it's really uninformed. If the man, however, is a student of politics and history and economics, and he's informed about current events, now I will take his opinion seriously. Now it's up to you to make those decisions and distinctions. It's not up to the government to make those. There's another distinction that we have to make. I would hate it if the government came in and told artists or scientists or actors that they had no ability to express their opinion. They've got an absolute right to express their opinion, whatever that opinion is, however stupid, however valid. But you see, that doesn't mean that I don't get to make my own private distinctions about what I care about. And I don't care about Billie Eilish's view of Native American land rights. I really don't. It's her music that I'm listening to when I like it. I evaluate her music, which is what makes her famous. She is good at music. That makes her music worth listening to. That's the personal distinction I make because I know her position on native lands is historically, politically uninformed BS. And so I get upset because these artists or these athletes seem to think that because they're great athletes and artists, see, a lot of their fans feed into that. They worship them. Oh, I worship you, artist or athlete. Yes. And that gives them the idea that somehow all of their opinions about everything should matter to anyone. No, I don't give a crap what some actor thinks about politics. I don't
actor, right? That's, I think, the point. The title of actor or singer does not grant you any kind of special magic. If there is an actor or performer who's making a logical, reasoned argument, sure.
Like Mr. Mark Pellegrino, who is informed by sound political philosophy. He has studied the correct philosophy, and when he does read your articles, he is informed about current events, and that makes his opinion worth listening to. So I listen to Mark Pellegrino, and he's put political things. I'm not saying actors can't make good political statements any more than I'm saying that a novelist or like Ayn Rand can't make a good political statement. But look, you should be able, and this is what the left could never do with The Fountainhead. The Fountainhead is a beautiful book. Its emphasis really isn't political. It's psychological and moral. And so if you're a leftist and Ayn Rand's politics get in the way, then I pity you. I pity you for missing the poetry and majesty of a novel like The Fountainhead. You see, Ayn Rand, the author of The Fountainhead, could set aside the religious views of Dostoevsky or the political views of Victor Hugo and say they were great novelists.
Well, Jim,
her approach allowed her to get all the values out of these great artists' work without it letting interfere with her evaluation. These leftist idiots, they can't do that. And so, like your case within the group, what happens there is if it was the opposite politics, well, no, you can't bring it in here, even though we're talking about living nonviolent life. Okay. Well, now you're just confusing. You're just failing to make all these distinctions. And by evaluating their opinions and by evaluating their art or their athletics, Kaepernick didn't really impress me much as an athlete ultimately. But the point is, why should I care? Even if he was the best athlete over his career in football, why should I care about his politics? He would have to convince me that his political opinion, again, I'm not saying that an athlete couldn't have a good, worth listening to a political opinion, but he would have to demonstrate to me that he understood the subject, that his opinion was worth hearing. So I discriminate, you see, people's opinions based on the opinion itself. I'm not going to worship some artist and say, well, then, therefore their opinion is valid, nor am I going to use their politics as a way to judge their art or them as an athlete. I could think that this is the greatest athlete who ever lived and totally disagree with his politics. I could think Albert Einstein was the greatest. I'm not a physicist, so don't take this, literally.
Oh.
But I could think Einstein was the greatest physicist of all time and still think he was wrong about politics.
Okay, I have to say something. So it turns out I just looked it up. Earlier today, I looked it up, and it said that it was the kid from ICE that he gave the Grammy to. Now it turns out this kid was an actor. Lee said that earlier, and Lee was correct. But this Phil here says, good show, gents. Separately, may I ask if Jim, is it possible to buy a signed new copy of Creating Christ from you or elsewhere? Any thoughts? And he gave £5, so that's wonderful.
Well, sir, I'm happy to, if you, we can work it out. Private message me on Facebook Messenger if you can, or X if you can, and I will private message you back on how to get you a signed copy of Creating Christ. Absolutely, that can be worked out. But let's have a private communication about that, especially since there's shipping and private addresses involved and all sorts of things like that. But I'd be perfectly happy to get you a signed copy of Creating Christ, and I'm honored by your request.
And we also got $2 more from Jenna. Let me go through here. Persephone, will you please post a picture that I just emailed to you? Put it in here so I can put it on the screen. I want to see calls to separate art from politics often emerge when art becomes uncomfortable or critical. This demand can function as a way to silence dissent. First of all, I'm not calling to separate art from politics.
No,
I'm saying that when it's specifically about going to a sporting event, that it's divisive to do that. But the other part of it is, I agree probably with Bad Bunny on immigration. I'm an open immigration guy, almost to the point where I would just say, let people walk back and forth. So I mean, the idea that would make me uncomfortable doesn't. Somebody said that Spanish people can't post their opinions. I just want to show this. This is one of my best friends, dude. I mean, at least if you're going to comment and say ridiculous things like that, understand to whom you are speaking.
That has absolutely nothing to do with it.
No.
Let me give you an example from about politics and art. From the 1930s. Ayn Rand wrote an anti-communist novel called We the Living in the 1930s. It was panned by the critics, many critics. Some liked it, but many, many critics didn't like it because in their view at the time, the Soviets, quote, too often wore the black hat. Now, interestingly, in the novel, she turns the communist into one of the great heroes. So if you think Ayn Rand is simplistic, you're wrong. On the other hand, it has a direct political theme against authoritarian, totalitarian politics. There's another novelist, a guy named John Steinbeck, who wrote a big novel called The Grapes of Wrath. Totally, I disagree with his politics. I couldn't disagree with a man's politics more than I disagree with John Steinbeck. I also don't like the basic literary approach known as naturalism, which John Steinbeck's novel is a great example of. Can I say that John Steinbeck was a brilliant writer, a skilled writer? John Steinbeck was a skilled writer who wrote a political novel that I highly disagree with. I am capable of still saying he was a great writer. I agree with Ayn Rand's political theme, and I'm also capable of saying that was a great novel as well. Okay, see how that works?
Yeah.
I can listen. Let me give you another example. I'm not a Christian. I love Schubert's Ave Maria because I have a soul, you see? And I can make that distinction. Now, I distinguish between the politics. Now, if politics gets heavy-handed in a novel, Dickens can be just a caricature of the political caricature. And so I can for me to at all be able to read Charles Dickens, I have to separate out that clunky, heavy-handed politics. Because, if something is truly just agitprop, then I just say, dismiss it as art.
Jim, I do want to pivot just a little bit here. Ian Gilmore says the halftime show is not about sports. Ian, I'm a little disappointed because neither one of us intimated even a little bit that the halftime show is about sports. It is, however, about entertainment. And to say that this was not going to be controversial, that it was not going to be a thumb in the eye of the people with whom they disagree, come on. Now, let's talk about the ridiculousness of the TPUSA. These schmucks made their own halftime show because evidently, they're so offended that they have to make their own. They bring out this 50-some-odd-year-old Kid Rock with his long hair, and he's jamming out. He doesn't even have the lip syncing lined up, because he's flipping his mic while you could still hear the lyrics playing in the background. And all I saw all night from these, the right wing folks was, oh, it was so beautiful, it was so great, outperformed them in the ratings. Oh, Megyn Kelly, it was bringing tears to my eyes. Get bent. It didn't bring tears to your eyes.
If I just got through saying that great art can make a great political point, and it can be great in terms of both, I will also say that if you're heavy-handed about your politics, if you're not skilled, if the point isn't the art or the entertainment value of the music, then your music's probably going to suck. So if what you come in with is a political motive, so let's listen to music, whether it's left or right. I can almost sight unseen tell you that the music will be inferior, the entertainment will be inferior, unless you're going there for a political, to feed your own political opinion. So if you're on the right and you start out by saying, well, since this guy disagrees with Trump, we're going to do our alternate halftime show. If that's your motive, your art will probably suck. If you come out and you're a Bad Bunny and you are against Trump and you've just got to squeeze in to your political view in the halftime show, I will predict that your art is probably going to suck. Now, I think his music sucks anyway. I just don't like Bad Bunny's music. I get to have that opinion too. But if they wanted to have music that just sucked, that would be their right. In fact, as a private organization, they could have had heavy-handed political agitprop. As far as I'm concerned, they're a private organization. I can still say it's bad entertainment. It's bad art. And I can further say the heavy-handed politics is probably a bad way to start out when music is your goal. How about you put the music first? Take Billie Eilish. Her music that I like, I can't detect any political view. And there's something else going on, you see. There's something, may I use the word spiritual, there's something sense of lifey or psychological or morally going on that's different, right? That makes the whole musical experience much more elevated, less heavy-handed in the politics. If you're going to be heavy-handed in your politics, you're getting in the way of your art, nearly always. But that as equally on the other side, let me just again make the distinction. You could make a powerful political statement through a well-crafted work of art. All these things can be true at the same time, ladies and gentlemen. All of these things can be true merely because it was in a foreign language. Sorry, Michael, if it's foreign language music, I would have loved certain foreign language music and to be the halftime show, because that would have entertained me because it's really good music. And it doesn't even be as bland as the songs that I quoted earlier, which have pretty bland lyrics.
Jim, sorry to call you Jimmy. I don't even know if you like Jimmy, but I'll go with Jimmy.
You've been called that since I was a little child.
So Andrew, you are talking to two dyed-in-the-wool atheists. I thought it was silly what Tim Tebow was doing. I think that it's silly. And if Tim Tebow made a big thing about it at a football game, I'm not a fan of it. I wasn't a fan of it when Tony Dungy did it. I mean, if they're free to do it. I'm not. Nobody's saying they should be shut down and not allowed to do it. But here's the thing. Suppose Jim and I somehow were great football players. We went out and played football. We won the game. And then at the end of the game, we said, oh, thank God for, I mean, not that you wouldn't say thank God. And we said, we're just so thankful that we have this marvelous gift of reason. You know, we're so grateful that someone like Ayn Rand was able to demonstrate that God is not a real thing. People would lose their minds.
Lose their shit over just our saying, if I just said, you know, I'm an atheist, so I'm not going to thank God here, because really what it took was dedication, integrity, my devotion to reason. They would have freaked out. They would have freaked out if I'd made some objectivist political statement. And guess what? As a great athlete, I wouldn't expect people to, and I wouldn't try to use that as a platform, is my point. I think it would be offensive to use as a platform. I would not have taken, as deeply devoted to the ideas of Ayn Rand as I am, I would not use some irrelevant platform to do that with. You know, if I was awarded, you know, something that had absolutely nothing to do with it, and I know other people are there who might get offended, I'm not going to use that as a platform to sell objectivism. Okay? Right. That's inappropriate.
Thank you, Nicole, for the $5, the super sticker.
You know, I got awards as a prosecutor for prosecuting. So I did not, when I got up to get the award, I did not suddenly turn that into a speech about my religion, my politics in general. I said, thank you. Having integrity when you prosecute the law is an important thing. And I'm honored that you would honor me for my legal skills and my legal integrity. That's what was relevant.
We have a question from this, yes. Andrew. He asked you, but I'll answer it. Let me answer it first. When Tim Tebow prayed on the field, did it offend you? Last night didn't offend me. I'm not offended. My feelings aren't hurt by it. I don't, you know, I would rather they didn't politicize the halftime show. I'm not broken up, and I wouldn't be offended if Tim Tebow did something similar, although I would prefer that he didn't.
What I'm saying is he's wasting my time at the very least. Just like the religious guy is wasting my time. This is irrelevant. Why are you doing that? Why? And I would be sensitive to people who are being offended, in other words. I'm watching, you know, I belong to groups on social media called, you know, Atheists for Capitalism, or, you know, Atheist Republicans or something, you know, even though I don't much like the Republican Party today, because I'm interested in their view, because it's a paradoxical kind of combination, right? And I think to myself when I watch Fox News, which has become in so much of the religion, I think to myself, can't they be aware? I can put up with it. You say, am I offended? Well, sometimes I wade through it and I get sick to my stomach because it has nothing to do with it. Okay. But I'm also thinking in the back of my mind, you are turning off all of the growing number of atheist, agnostic, non-affiliated people in America. You're turning them off from your political viewpoint. It's not even politically smart. So, look, if you offended is a smushy word. Do I like it? No. Am I taking personal offense and I'm going to say he can't do it? No, I'm saying he has a right to do it. NFL has a right to do it. They have free speech. They're a private organization. He is a private artist. He has a right to his opinion. And if they let him do it, right? But he should be aware. This is the way I feel about Fox News, for example. They should be aware that they're turning off all their secular viewers. Yes. This guy should be aware that and he knows it, and he's thrusting it in their face. And I don't respect that. So no. Do I respect him? No, I disrespect him for it without being personally offended. Can you make that distinction?
I can, but this guy has now been a dick to you. So what I want to do, Andrew, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. No prep, nothing. Right when this show goes off, I've got all kinds of things to do. I've got a show at 2:30, then I got a show with Jim at 3:30. I'll take you 10 after 1 today. Send me the message. Send me where I can send you a link, Andrew, and we're going to bring you on. You can tell us the proposition you want, and then we'll debate. Okay, Andrew? So that's going to be it.
Well, Andrew. But the point is that you have to make these distinctions. I can be not offended and still think it's stupid and it's a waste of my time. I
No.
can still think that it's poor judgment and not
Right.
offended. I can
Yes.
still think that it's bad music and think that people have a right to listen to it. I can still think it's a dumb political opinion, but it's his freedom of speech. I can still think that. But I disagree.
I have something to say. I'm just curious about it. Anybody in the audience willing to take me up on this? And Andrew, maybe you will. When Andrew and I get into our debate, when I'm able to get a transcript, I will download it to the various AIs. And yes, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, X, whatever. We'll download the debate and we'll have AI be the judge, so there's no bias. And who's willing to give? Andrew, are you willing to give some super chats if I best you in this debate? Judged on logic and accuracy, Andrew? Curious. You willing to? Send me the information so I can get to you, Andrew. And I'm telling you right now, I'm a very respectful debater. Very. You will get your time. I won't interrupt. You'll get your time. If you come on my show and try to bogart the discussion, or you disrespect me, or you disrespect my friends, I will end the program immediately. Immediately. I hope everybody tunes in, so maybe you'll give some super chats during the debate. But Jim, I want to switch now to the Olympics. You know, the Olympian said, you know, he likes, there's some things about America right now that he wouldn't represent. And of course, the man-child in the Oval Office, you know, comes out, this guy's a horrible person, you know, all the stupid nonsense that this asshole says on a regular basis. So, first of all, the Olympian has the right to say whatever he wants. He didn't say anything all that bad. I mean, he didn't go off. I think it's a little silly that reporters are asking Olympic athletes what their political views are. That is a direct attempt to just stir shit up that they don't need to. But again, I want to flip this a little bit, right? Can you imagine? The point I want to demonstrate is the blatant tribalism on both sides of this thing. If Barack Obama were in office and there were a conservative Olympian and they asked him what he thought about America, and he said, I love my country, I don't like a lot of the socialist policies that are currently being implemented, the right would call him a hero. And the left would lose their shit.
Would lose it. And call him a Neanderthal or whatever else they're knuckle dragging, you know, reaction.
Yes. And that's the thing, Jim. It's the tribalism that I cannot
There's something
stand.
about the Olympics in general that I would have to say, look, when I do watch Olympic events, again, I'm not generally, and I'm going to make an exception here, I'm not generally rooting for America. Let me say that again. I'm a patriot. Persephone would say patriotic and not patriotic. I'm a patriotic American, okay? But what really would thrill me in watching a sports event is a thrilling athletic performance. And the better the athletic performance, the greater the value I'm getting, the greater the inspiration I'm getting from the athlete. Now, when the whole idea of the Olympics was to promote world peace by bringing the nations together to have a sporting competition. So if it is a dictatorship, like the old Soviet Union was, and it was a team sport, like, say, hockey. So when the American hockey team defeated the Soviet hockey team, I was like, yeah, okay? And I have to admit it. Now, does that confess tribalism? No. It's my intense disgust at dictatorship. So I don't think that America should be interacting with dictators, okay? I don't think we should have diplomatic relations. But again, the Olympic Committee is a separate thing from government. Governments have to go along with it. They have to agree to the immigration things that are involved, the security things that are involved. So you have to, it's a great promotional thing, and countries, compete for who will get the Olympics. And once more, I think this is like the third time that Los Angeles is getting the Olympics in the history of the Olympics. Los Angeles has all kinds of amazing sports facilities. Anyway, and Trump is loving it, and he's going to try and turn it into this rah-rah American event. The head of state normally does open the Olympics. But as I say, normally speaking, what I'm looking for is a great athletic performance. I want to see the best athletic performance in the world by the great performances in the world by the greatest athletes in the world. When there is a dictatorship, I think to myself, well, at least this might be a good opportunity for them to defect. If it's a dictatorship, I'm saying to myself, why the hell are we involved in an international organization with dictators, just as I am with the United Nations? So when a team sport from a dictatorship loses to a freer country, I say, yeah, okay, that's because I don't like dictatorship. I think dictatorship is the opponent of world peace. I think dictatorship is the cause of war. I think dictatorship is a state of war of a government against its own people in the first place. So I don't like dictatorships. I don't like interacting with dictators. I would never root for a dictatorship's team sport. On the other hand, what am I looking for in the Olympics? I'm not looking at, a lot of people will say, what's the medal count by nation? And oftentimes America is, in the top with the medal count. We have great athletes in America. Does that make me tribalistically proud to be an American? No, it makes me think, free countries, even without government subsidies, can achieve great athletic things. So, but what are you looking for when you watch an Olympic sporting event? Do I want to see the best of what human beings can do? And if it's a Frenchman or a Japanese person I don't care if it's a thrilling performance. It's the thrill of the best doing the best.
Okay? Jim, it's this guy in the audience now, and I'm going to give him a break because he's just tuning in now. He says, "Do you agree? So you agree tribalism is bad?" Guy, I spend like the vast majority of my life preaching against tribalism. I'm constantly accused of being a leftist, and a bleftivist. I'm a leftist. I have Trump derangement syndrome. This is every single day of my life that I get accused of these things. So yeah, I get you. Just
tribalism is bad, and like I say, the only thing that influences me on the Olympics is I think dictatorships are bad. And they're the ones subsidizing this, and they will make propaganda value out of it. So it sickens me to my stomach that dictators are making propaganda, getting propaganda value out of something like the Olympics, because I don't like dictatorship. They tend to be tribalist, okay? But when I just look at the athletic performances between French people, Norwegian people, Canadians, Japanese, Brazilians, I'm thrilled at any great performance. I'm not looking at the medal count at the end of the Olympics, okay? That's the way I oppose tribalism. I really don't care what the national medal count is. What I do care about is the way dictatorships use their athletes, use it for propaganda value. That does bug me because I don't like dictatorships. And that has nothing to do with my opposition to tribalism. In fact, to the extent it does, it feeds into my opposition to dictatorship because they are very frequently tribalistic.
So one of the things that I've seen, and this is what I was just looking at on Twitter, is all these people. I think the left has plenty, obviously, to criticize, right? But I frequently see people like this Gunther Eagleman that they put things in quotations that nobody actually said. They're claiming evidently a part of the song that Bad Bunny sang, if it was sang in its entirety, has very explicit lyrics. Now, I've looked into this, and everything I've seen so far says no, he did not sing these lyrics last night. But they're out there claiming yes, these are the lyrics he sang. And my question to them was, if the left is so bad, then why the need to lie? Just tell the truth.
It defines your case. And if you're lying, it's going to be found out. And everyone who knows Spanish is going to be able to know you just lied. And guess what? Lots of people know Spanish in this world. And so you're undermining your case if you just simply lie that he made this. But besides, would I care? I mean, let me put it this way. Could a beautiful song have, listen to Cigarettes After Sex, for example. Some of their lyrics are explicitly sexual. And do I like Cigarettes After Sex as a group and their music. Very, very much
I
so.
thought you were just going to say you liked cigarettes after sex.
Well, there's a connection between all of these things, I think. But the point is, though, the group, the musical group, Cigarettes After Sex, I like their music. And some of their music is very sexually explicit. And does that make it bad music? No. But if someone on the right, because of their conservative moral values or their religious values, said, oh, well, that would be inappropriate to have in some context, I would appreciate that, but disagree with them. See, I can make all these distinctions. I can make the distinction, but it does confess something, that they're lying and that they need to make some moral point so they can appeal to their religious base, because that's all it would do. Could you evaluate, please, the music apart from your moral objection to it? Like Ayn Rand could evaluate Dostoevsky and Hugo, because their skill as an artist is quite different from what their politics might be. And further, yes, they have the freedom of speech to have whatever politics they want. And when I criticize, however, someone turning an event that should be about sports or art into a political event, I'm giving you my opinion, and I'm telling you it's ruining not ruining the whole event, but negatively affecting the event for me. To the point, say, that they've turned the Academy Awards in Hollywood into a political show. Who cares? I mean, you've turned me off from ever watching the Oscars. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see a bunch of political speeches one way or another. If I know the movies of the year, what I'm looking to see are these skilled movie makers, these writers, these editors, these actors, getting honored for the skill of their artistry. Now, wasn't that the point? And if that's the point, then I want to, give it the attention.
Thank you very much, Robert, for the $1.99 super sticker. This happens to me quite frequently. What happened to me? So after I watched the Bad Bunny performance, whatever. I was like, I don't care for that. I didn't like. Like I said, I didn't like that it was in Spanish, not because I think that necessarily there shouldn't be Spanish sung at an American thing. I didn't like it because of what I interpreted the intent of the entire thing to be.
Right.
That's the issue. But I got to tell you, so, after that, and I was reminded about how much I dislike the left generally. And then I wake up this morning and I go to Twitter and I'm immediately reminded of how much I hate the right, because they are insufferable. And
welcome to the world of politics. You get so disgusted at one side, you say, okay, I got to read the other side. Then you read them, and after 5 minutes, oh my God, you can't believe what Van said or did that. Okay, or what it's not so much even what the politicians say. It's what a lot of these real lunatics on social media say on both sides. It's really horrific. I mean, listening to some of these madmen on the left and the right is enough to make you sick and feel hopeless and enter despairing depression listening to them about the future, because these people, apparently their inability to make these distinctions that I'm begging people to make all these distinctions about, right? Artistic skill here, political opinions here, freedom of speech here, purpose of event here. Are we here to honor the awards show or the Olympics? Or are we here to honor the artistic skill? Or are we here to make a political point?
No.
Or are we here to have a sporting event and then have a lovely entertainment at halftime? Or are we here to make a political event that will offend half the audience?
The worst thing out of everything, out of the silly TPS, I thought that was silly, that whole TPS, TPUSA, whatever it is, Turning Point USA. I thought that was silly. But the worst part of this whole thing for me is the President of the United States feeling he must comment. And doing so, calling they're horrible people, they're losers. It's like, you are the President of the United States, President of the greatest nation in the history of the world, and this is how you behave, like a man-child. It is really, really gross.
His ego is so fragile that should an athlete have a political view that's different from his, He will denounce the athlete. Look, Mr. President, really the way to honor your office is to stay above all that, is to say, look, he's an athlete, right? I agree with you, Michael. The reporters asking these Olympic athletes, they're the ones who really should think about it, because what the hell does it have to do with Olympics? Are you really helping world unity in asking this question is going to prompt some answer like that? But by the same token, the President of the United States should stay above all that. When he opens the Los Angeles Olympics later this year, should he turn that event into what Adolf Hitler turned the Munich Olympics into in the 1930s? No. What he should do is he should rise above politics. The way Reagan opened the Olympics when he was president, he rose above politics. Can you try to do that, Mr. Trump? Please spare us when you open the Olympics this year, or the political axe grinding. And do you have to get down in the mire with some athlete because you disagree with him? It has nothing to do with his athletic performance, right? And what you're doing is drawing more attention to it. And you're getting all sensitive about it because apparently you have a fragile ego that some athlete who is so good that he would qualify for the Olympics might have a difference of opinion on politics from you and maybe even think you're a rotten president. People are incapable of not only making these distinctions. We have a president whose ego is so fragile that if you disagree with him, he's going to have an alternate halftime performance, go out of his way to criticize some Olympic athlete. No. What a proper president, if asked, let's say, Mr. President, what do you think of this athlete's view about your immigration policies or his view about you? This is the Olympics. I think he's a great athlete simply to have qualified. I hope that we have some great athletic performances out there. But I don't think it's really relevant, Mr. Reporter, Miss Reporter, what his view of my politics is, because after all, this is an athletic event that's supposed to bring people, as someone said, together in all this. So, Mr. Trump, do something like that. Rise above. Prove that you're the president of the whole United States. Thomas Jefferson was very famous in his first inaugural address. It was very contentious. It was the first really contentious presidential election in American history, and very contentious in 1800. And when he became president, he said, we're all Republicans. We're all Federalists. He was a president who tried to rise above even politics when it came to a political event. Now, imagine that kind of a world. Presidents always say, well, I'm presidents of all of America. Well, act like it then. Events like the Olympics.
So Robert gives $5. Thank you, Robert. He says, if Prezi McApprentice were to suddenly start acting presidential, we would quite reasonably assume he'd been replaced by an imposter. Before I give the capital, I'll give the capital start of the day.
Please.
Cuda Baba said, what if he's objectively right? Our left is not literally enemies of America and American values, and I'm not a Trumpist. The problem is Trump and MAGA are enemies also of America and America's values. That is the inherent problem. I get you're not a Trumpist, okay. But what they are doing is against America. What Obama did was against America and America's values. As the president of the United States, he's the president of everybody, whether he likes them or not.
Yeah.
And if he were to just say, I congratulate them on their athletic prowess. I disagree with what they have to say, but they have the right to say it. Cool. But he goes on a tantrum with everybody that says anything that he feels is a critique of him and calls them losers and that sort of thing. And that's just
a fragile ego, huh?
Yeah.
But the point, though, is that you could think one side or the other is, quote, objectively right. I agree with Michael. I have massive criticisms with currently both the Republicans and the new right and the left and the progressive left and the Democrats. I disagree with both of them. And so being the odd man out and, ideologically homeless in that sense, it makes me particularly sensitive to, can we just have an event where you keep the politics out? This is a sporting event. This is a musical concert. Do we need to have some big lecture? Even if your music has an implicit politics, even if the athlete is known for having a political opinion, can we just keep that out of the sporting event and the musical concert so that if we want to enjoy it, we can do so? Yes, I happen to think my political view is objectively correct, and I think I could logically prove it to someone who was open to logic rather than just supporting their tribe. But yeah, someone is objectively correct here. Yeah, absolutely. But there are times, say at the Academy Awards in Hollywood, when they're giving Oscars out, when I think it is fully inappropriate, whatever your politics are, including if let's say the science fiction example I know, let's say somehow I got an Academy, my father won an Academy Award, but let's say I won an Academy Award for some crazy reason that I can't imagine. Would I go up there and make a statement about my politics? No, I wouldn't. I would say thank you, colleagues, for honoring my skill.
Jim, I forgot to tell you this. This guy, I got to get back here now because it just clicked in my head. The Phil guy. I can't find him. Oh, Phil. He gave another £5 and he said, JV, on the book, I have never done social media nor want to. Can I email the show or go through publisher perhaps? Sorry, off topic.
Yeah, well, my publisher is Crossroads Press, and let's find a way to make this happen. I don't want to give my email on a podcast. I'm already inundated with emails.
Email me. If I get silly emails, I'll just block them. What the hell do I care? My name, I mean, I'm all over the place. So what difference does it make? You could look me up and find everything out you want to know. All right. Capitalist thought of the day is this: free speech is one of the bedrocks of freedom and one of the bedrocks of capitalism. People absolutely have the right to say what they want if they, of course, are on their own property or on the property of someone who gives them the permission to do so. The NFL and other sporting leagues are certainly within their rights to platform whomever they want to, but at the same time that they have freedom of speech, Jim and I do as well, and we are free to disagree and to voice our displeasure or our disagreement. We all are free to do that, and we should continue to do so, even the people who are wrong and criticize us. To be clear, if you're criticizing us, you're wrong. There's no doubt about that. No, I'm kidding. But use your
you're free to do
speech.
so.
Yes, use your freedom of speech to express your views.
And if if you need to use something that like sports or the Academy Awards to make your political point, let me suggest you're the one not so sure of your political views. But what a great point. Capitalist.
Ian Gilmore, I'm going to answer this question. I didn't know the song was political at the beginning. I know Green Day are big lefties, but I didn't know. I mean, I really didn't know. The only song I like two songs of theirs. The one where they talk about my shadows, the only one that walks beside me, and Time of Your Life. Okay, the question I want everybody to answer is, what can we do as individuals to help heal the cultural split that we have in this country? What can we do to accomplish this? Please go to YouTube, Capitalist Corner, and answer the question. Mark has assured me he will be back tomorrow. We will see. Hopefully he will be. So tune in. And until then, check your premises.